I'm almost always late to the party. It was quite a while before I realized that Sonic vs. Mario was even a thing. You know, the Great Mascot Wars. As weird as it sounds, when I was a kid, I didn't even know Sonic was a game. And conversely, I didn't know the Avengers came from anything else. I always thought they were only an arcade game. I eventually discovered the comics, but that's a whole other story. I was first introduced to this blue ball of energy through the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog show, which looked so much more epic and high budget in my memory. It doesn't hold up too well for me today, but I was a captive audience as a kid. That said, I played a lot of Mario for years, but I never took to him as a character the way I did with Sonic, probably because of his speed and overall design. Super speed is one of my favorite superpowers, and you have to admit, it's better than jumping through pipes after indulging in some shrooms. I have a friend who is probably cursing at the screen now. But whether you're Team Mario or Team Sonic, it's great to have them both as the best video game movies thus far. And related to that, it's cool that both brands are coming out with old school platformer games at the same damn time, all these years later. Whether it's nostalgia or just longevity of the brand, it's always nice to know that the things you valued as a kid translate across several generations. Not everything gets to last this long. As random and scatterbrained as all this background information may appear to be, it's actually relevant to the topic of the video. I'm not super up on all the Sonic lore, so maybe this might invite a lot of pushback, but all the Sonic I have watched, and it is substantial, occasionally depressing. I think Sonic Boom gives the best introduction to the universe for casuals of all ages and genders. It's by far the most accessible Sonic I've watched over the years, and I'll get into why in just a second. The show was apparently based on a game series from 2014 and 2016 that doesn't appear to be very popular. When researching this video, I stumbled across really fun adverts and trailers for games, which feature the same character models that are in this show. I honestly found research into the origins of Sonic Boom to be quite a headache because I was finding all sorts of weird and contradictory footage and media, and I couldn't tell what was official and what could possibly have been fan-made, so please educate me in the comments if you come from this world. Oh wait, I actually found a good summary.
When it comes to Sonic games, Sonic Boom is definitely one of them. Released exclusively to the premier Wii U console, ooh, you know it's gonna be good. Surely you remember the outrage when this looked like that, right? Not only is this game broken beyond repair, but it was accompanied by an incredibly quirky cartoon.
And that's where my video comes in. If you've watched my channel before, you know I love my comic books, so I have to mention that it was also adapted into a comic book that was based on the game and the show. But I like that their vision for this version of Sonic and his crew was so cemented that it stayed consistent all through the different media. I think they quickly realized that they had struck gold with this version of the characters. That said, I don't know if the negative reception of the game affected how people viewed the show, because I've not seen a lot of love for it online in spite of its high level of quality in writing and animation. It's a very humorous and light-hearted take on all the characters, which proved to be a great springboard for an animated sitcom of sorts. It actually reminds me of the Looney Tunes show, and y'all know how much I love that show. If you don't know a Sonic from a Tails or a Knuckles, you can still easily get into this cartoon, which is a comedy first. Unlike a lot of other shows which take the lore seriously, this one has a much lighter touch on the characters and story. The heroes and the villains coexist on this little island, and rather than the heavy stakes that you often find in other Sonic shows, the dynamic here is a lot more playful. When I first found this show, a friend told me that it was for kids, but after a few episodes I found myself disagreeing with that. I would say that it's more for families, but people with a more developed prefrontal cortex will find a lot more to appreciate here than the kids. I'm a tropical island kinda guy, so the setting here was an easy hook for me. What can I say? I'm a visual creature. And the funny, light-hearted approach which I mentioned before allowed the characters to fit into the world in a very believable way. While the main cast of Sonic and his friends are mostly one-dimensional, which can be good for a sitcom, it's the colorful cast of side characters that truly elevate the show. I think I've said that before in a previous video. I'll get to some examples, but the world building and character development is really good across the two seasons. It was cool how they utilized the side characters on the show to make the island feel like it was populated by real creatures who had real lives outside of the main plots of the episodes. It's that word again, world building. It's probably my favorite thing. So as far as character introductions go, Sonic is the cocky leader
I'm so full of skills that skills are leaking out of my ears.
Tails is Sonic's loyal sidekick.
Get out of here.
That's not how sidekicks do.
Amy is the will they, won't they love interest of Sonic's.
Shut that thing off before it tells Sonic that I love. What was he saying?
Nothing important.
Knuckles is the big dumb muscle.
Knuckles, your hat is on backwards.
Where'd everyone go?
And Styx is the paranoid conspiracy theorist.
Why doesn't anyone ever believe me? It's not like I'm paranoid. Stop following me!
Together, they're the heroes that protect this island from all sorts of villains, most of whom were more amusing and pathetic than they were dangerous. Sonic's arch nemesis, who all Sonic fans are familiar with, is Dr. Egghead.
Eggman! You know my name is Dr. Eggman!
Who had a not-so-secret volcanic lair a short distance from Sonic's village. As usual, Dr. Eggman had two dumb robot sidekicks who he would treat like dirt, but it was always more comedic than it was sad. My favorite characters off the main cast were actually Tails and Dr. Eggman. Tails because his super innocence makes him cute and low-key really funny, and Dr. Eggman because he's dumb but extremely charismatic. Honestly, Dr. Eggman makes this show. He's the sun and all the other characters orbit around him. It's actually amazing how much fun his character is. And speaking of comparisons to the Looney Tunes show, there's an episode where Dr. Eggman's lair was supposedly destroyed in a storm and he requested to live with Sonic until his lair could be rebuilt. This of course turned out to be a ruse to tire Sonic out, so Dr. Eggman's secret killer robot project could defeat him and his friends. The robot went rogue and they ended up having to team up to bring it down. Then there's the episode where Dr. Eggman hired Amy to redo his lair because he wanted it to be featured in Modern Lair magazine. I guess this is why my friend said that this show was for kids, but I enjoyed that frenemy, low-stakes dynamic between heroes and villains. It makes for great comedy, which is ultimately what this show is about and why it is so approachable. And if we're speaking of comedy, the other inhabitants of the village were hilarious. There was this little village of Go-Go-Bas who came from Dagobah? That is not correct. According to Google, they were anthropomorphic chinchillas, and according to me, they were annoying. So annoying. Their whole shtick was guilt-tripping Sonic and Tails and whoever else they could find into staying with them and protecting them. I can't emphasize enough just how creepy and annoying and stalkerish they were, but as the show went on, every appearance had me laughing out loud.
My sciatica is flaring up, but I'm sure I'll only be laid up for a week or so. You go return your book while I struggle painfully and injure myself. Don't worry about me. I'll just chew off my leg. Which works out well because I haven't had anything to eat in a while.
Complete psychos. There was also this kid who worked at a fast food stand and was secretly a fan of Dr. Eggman. Dr. Eggman took him under his wing because he was a huge suck-up, and he instantly became a much bigger problem than Eggman had bargained for. His turn to evil was actually genuinely creepy at points, but in the long run, his involvement in the show became a goldmine for comedy. He spent the rest of his time on the show between selling fast food and secretly perpetrating evil. Then there was a shadowy evil organization called the Lightning Bolt Society. These guys were my favorite. They seemed very effective at first, but they eventually turned out to be complete losers who would commit petty crime. They would steal Dr. Eggman's weapons from his trash, and the more you'd see of them, the more you realized how doofy they really were. They actually did a great job building up to them because you'd meet the individual characters one by one in different scenarios, so when they eventually built up to them as a collective, the level of loserness was all the more pathetic. They were like baby gangsters, and their episodes were always laugh out loud funny. Then there was this eagle who started out as a motivational speaker who seemed to be running some sort of MLM or Ponzi scheme, but he eventually evolved into a typical self-centered news personality. He was one of my favorite visual designs on the show. Then there was T.W. Barker, who was just a grifter and a thief. One of the shadier characters on the show who could not be trusted. He had absolutely no redeeming qualities whatsoever and always popped up when there was an opportunity to grift, steal, or con an easy victim. But that said, it was always hilarious watching him work. He was great. Then there was the comedy chimp who reminded me of Krusty the Clown from The Simpsons. He was a TV comedian whose career did not seem particularly stable. His character, like Krusty, seemed like a jab at late-night TV hosts, and he was a great recurring character whenever they had a cynical take on the media. There was also this lady who did not seem like a very responsible mother. Her usual catchphrase every single time was,
My
me.
Then there was the obligatory corrupt mayor who was completely incompetent like The Simpsons, and from him I'll segue into one of the funniest characters on the show.
Say no more, compadre bromigo. Time for some
Radical speed.
Ah, I'm Swifty the Shrew. Catch you around, dudes and lady dudes.
Even Styx of all people was smitten by him.
This is one bodacious radical flying machine, Deuterino bro guy.
Deuterino bro guy?
This whole thing was just comical. But the overall character design on this, whether with fan favorite Shadow the Hedgehog, who popped in and caused Eggman to break the fourth wall and address his popularity in all of Sonic canon, I'm sure the fans appreciated that, or the appearance of Metal Sonic, or this arrogant stuntman tiger called Tommy Thunder, who appeared in an episode dedicated to mocking celebrities, or this monkey who touted himself as a breaker of curses, all the designs were cool and uniquely fitting to their personalities, which made the show really fun to look at from a purely visual appeal standpoint. I feel like the Sonic movies borrowed design elements from here, especially with Tails and Knuckles. As the show progressed, new characters came in and old characters evolved into different levels of villainy, but they still coexisted with Sonic and his crew during their downtime. It just feels like a neighborhood with all the petty squabbles that people experience, but to a cartoonishly heightened extent. The show had 52 episodes a season, which brought the total number to 104 episodes, so as much as I want to say about it, there isn't enough time in my life for that deep of a dive. Maybe I can break down the individual episodes later, but it's really one of the most entertaining modern animated shows out there with a great cast, cohesive vision, and really funny writing. Even when they made jokes about social issues, like when the village wanted to cancel Sonic for something completely rational that he said, the absurdity of the whole cancel culture experience was always the punchline of the joke.
Sonic barged in and called Mike just a guy, as if to say he was so much better than the rest of us. How could you take that fella to a battle? He's not like you, Sonic. He's just a guy.
Wait, seriously? I only took him to the battle because you people...
You people!
I may have pointed out a lot of negative personality traits of some of my favorite characters, but they have so much charisma, it's kind of insane how well they are written. I really do put this up there with the Looney Tunes show. It's a great place to hang out with enough episodes to occupy you for a whole while. If you've watched it, let me know some of your favorite episodes and characters, as well as your overall favorite version of Sonic, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.